Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video we will continue with income tax. Now we will look at next chapter, which is chapter number 4. In this chapter we will try to identify between the difference between the self-employed and the one who is employed. Now before we move to identify between the difference between employed and someone who is self-employed, we have to know that why we need to identify, why there is need to identify, why there is need to differentiate between these two at all. Now, you know the difference between self-employed and employed. Employed is simply the one who works for someone. So if you have a job, you are employed by that company. If you work for Tesco, you are employed by Tesco. So you are employed. Now if you do a business, you are self-employed. If you are employing your own self, then you are self-employed. All right, so that is a, to be brief, that is a brief difference between these two. Now we know that this is a simple difference, but how HMRC will know? Is there a criteria set by HMRC to identify between that is self-employed, that is employed? So how will they know? Yes, definitely there is a criteria set by HMRC. So there is a sheet. So there are few things that they read them things and then they determine if that person is employed or self-employed. All right, so we will read that list in a minute, but before we move to that specific list, we need to identify that why we need to study that list at all. Why not just leave it, that even if someone is employed or self-employed, is there any impact on the tax liability? Yes, to be fair with you, there is a huge difference between being employed and self-employed. Now there is one tax which is called national insurance contribution, which some of you who live in the UK might not be. If you live in the UK, you are aware of that because you are dealing it with on the daily basis. But if you do not live in the UK, then you might not know what the national insurance contribution is. It is another type of tax. Just for now, you just understand it as another type of tax. Now, national insurance, when you pay that tax, if you are self-employed, you have to pay less NI. If you are employed, you will have to pay more NI. So if you are self-employed, you will have to pay less NI, which is a tax, and if you are employed, you will have to pay more national insurance contribution and more NIC. All right? So that's why HMRC says that we need to identify between these two, because if we do not do that, then someone who is employed actually may show themselves as self-employed in order to avoid some tax, in order to save some tax. All right, so we will see a list of the things which HMRC set a criteria, and we will have to read them and we will have to just memorize them because they are very, very important. Excuse me, important. All right, so I'll just go ahead and share the screen with you. Now, as you can see on your screen, that is chapter number 4 and page number 13 of ACCA F6 taxation, employed and self-employed, employment and self-employment. Now, the following factors should be considered to distinguish between employed or self-employed. Please make sure you mark it as important. It is very, very important as far as F6 is concerned. So they could be examined and they have been examined many times, especially in MCQs questions. All right, and in the third section of the exam, in the long questions, you are guaranteed to have one question on income tax anyway, so that could be one of these as well, that could be examined from this topic. All right, so please make sure you mark it as important. You are highly likely to be examined in MCQs, but you may be examined from this area in section 3 as well, because there is one guaranteed question on income tax, and well, we are studying income tax already anyway. From chapter 1 to almost chapter 10, it is income tax. All right, now move to our these list of criteria. So first it says that employment involves contract of services. So if you're in employment, it is contract of services, whereas if it is self-employment, it is contract for services. Then degree of control exercised over the person doing the work. So if someone has control over the employee, over the person doing the work, then it is chances are that they will be employed. All right. So if someone can control me, I am employed. Whether he must accept further work. So if my boss asks me to do some extra work, if I must accept extra work, I am employed. If I just decline that, then I am self-employed. Whether he provides his own equipment. So if I provide my own equipment, chances are that I will be self-employed, and if someone else provides me equipment, then I will be employed. Now say for example, if I rent someone and I ask them to come and repair my heating here or a boiler, if they come here and if they come with their own equipment, then chances are they will be self-employed. If I provide them the equipment, then they will be employed by myself. The next one, it says whether he hires his own helpers. Now if that specific person who come to fix my boiler, if he comes with his own helpers, then chances are he will be self-employed, and if I provide him with the helpers, then he will be employed. What degree of financial risk he takes. If he takes any financial risk, then he will be self-employed, and if he does not take any financial risk, then he will be employed. What degree of responsibility of investment and management he has. So if he has any responsibility for investment and management, then he will be self-employed. If he does not have any responsibility at all, then chances are that he will be employed, because obviously if you are self-employed, if you are owner of the business, then you will care about you will have responsibility about the management. Whether he can profit from sound management. Obviously it is strong indication of self-employment if you can profit from sound management. Whether he can work when he chooses, so it is also an indication of self-employment. So if it is up to you to work whenever you want, then you are self-employed. So say for example, if it's up to me to record these lectures whenever I want, if I ask, if I want to record this lecture, say for example in June 2017, then I will be self-employed, and if I have a deadline to abide by, then I am employed. The wording used in an agreement between the parties. So the wording will say, the contract will say if it is employment or self-employment, and so we do not have to worry about it much. Then it tells us about the pay system in the UK. The pay system is a pay as you earn. So most tax in the UK basically is deducted under the pay system. So if you work for someone, if I work for an account institute, when they pay me the salary, they have already deducted the tax on my salary. So that is pay as you earn. So when I earn, I pay. All right. Now, although they have deducted my tax from my salary, but what they will do with that tax, they can't keep in their own pocket. Obviously, I'm talking about account and CTO. So they can't keep it in their own pocket, so they will have to pay it to HMRC. So basically, they're collecting tax from my pocket. They're collecting tax on HMRC's behalf from my pocket, and they will ultimately have to pay it to HMRC. All right. So it says most tax in respect of employment income is deducted under the pay system. It is employer's duty to deduct income tax from pay of his employees. Now HMRC normal tax code is 1100L. Now when you are eligible for normal personal allowance, now your tax code will be 1100L. Now you can, if you are working for someone, you can check on your payslip what is your tax code. If you're getting the basic personal allowance, then chances are you will have 1100L tax code. That is for our current tax year. Now 1100L means, L simply represents another zero. So if you are getting £11,000 a year tax year, £11,000 a year of personal allowance, then you will have 1100L of tax code. If your personal allowance is £12,000, then it will be 1200 L likewise. Right, then it says 1100 L to employees who are entitled to personal allowance. Pay tax code will be applied to the salary of employees when calculating the amount of income tax that has to be paid each month under the pay system. Now, employees must submit information of salary to HMRC electronically. Now, when you have 250 or more employees, then you are a big business, isn't it? Then you have to submit the pay system electronically, means by internet, by 22nd month following the salary payment. Now, within the UK, salary is mostly paid in the last week of a month. So when the salary is paid, obviously employer has deducted the tax on it. They have a responsibility to submit that tax to HMRC by 22nd of next month when their salary is paid. Right? Then it says, in case of late filing of pay return, penalty of £400 will be imposed by the employer. So if employer was unable to pay by the date, then there is a penalty of £400. At the end of each tax year, the employer must provide each employee with P60 form. A P60 form is a form which is issued to employees at the end of tax year, which details the tax paid during the tax year, what was the earning, how much was the national insurance contribution deducted, and all that, employer name and all the details. This shows the total taxable earning for the tax year, tax deducted, code number, NI number, and employer's name and address. The P60 must be provided by 31st May following the year of assessment. So if it is tax year 16-17, it must be provided by 31st of May 2017. The end of tax year ends on 5th of April, isn't it? So for our current tax year, which ends on 5th of April 2017, the employer must send HMRC. Now by 19 May, obviously after the end of tax year, what he has to submit? End of year return, which is P14, which is exactly the same details of P60, which is for employees. Now form P30 also need to be submitted by 19th of May, which details the total tax and NI deducted from all employees. By 6th of July, however, you will have to submit 3 forms, which are P11D A and P11D B, and also P90D as well. P90D is for normal employees, whereas P11D is for the benefits of directors and special employees. Alright, and P11DB says a return of class 1A, which is for benefits, class 1A NICs. We'll study in a minute, sorry, not in a minute, we'll study in the next videos when we study about the national insurance contributions. So we'll study that national insurance contribution, as I said, is another type of tax which we have to study. When employees leaves the job, another form which is known as P45 is given to employees and prepared by employer and is provided to employee. This form shows the employee's taxable earnings and pay deducted during the tax year and his tax code. And the employer should provide P45 by 31st July. By 31st May, after the end of tax year in which the employee left the job. Alright, now this chapter is very, very important. All these informations can be examined in the exam, and these my notes are very short anyway, so they are about 70 pages anyway, so I mean you should not feel any harm in remembering these notes, memorizing this stuff. Alright, but that's it for this video, and I will see you in the next video, and we will study a next chapter which is about pensions. Alright, that's it, and I'll see you in the next video.